There's a truth hiding in plain sight, a truth so strange, so vast, that your entire understanding of reality could shift in a single breath. Not in some poetic sense, not as a metaphor, but as a scientifically grounded reality. You've heard whispers of it. Alternate timelines, parallel worlds, infinite realities existing side by side. But most people dismiss this as science fiction. Today, that illusion ends, because modern physics is pointing towards something extraordinary. You, right now, are not confined to this single universe. You exist across multiple realms simultaneously, echoes of yourself living different lives, making different choices, unfolding infinite versions of your existence. And this isn't just speculative imagination. It's a proposition backed by physics so advanced, it's shaking the very foundation of what we thought we knew about existence. Theoretical physicist Michio Kaku has said it boldly: parallel universes aren't just a fantasy. They may be the cold, hard truth. Not someday in the future. Now, in real time, in this video, we're going to tear through the veil of traditional perception. We're going to explore the frameworks of multiverse theory, quantum mechanics, and cutting-edge interpretations that suggest your quantum self is real, living, breathing, acting across countless realities. And by the time you reach the end of this journey, the ordinary will feel like an illusion. Because once you see the patterns hiding behind this cosmic curtain, you can never look at yourself or your decisions the same way again. We're going to uncover how physics isn't just validating these ideas. It's screaming them out from equations, experiments, and observations that redefine what it means to be alive. You'll discover the 4 distinct layers of multiverses predicted by science. You'll see how quantum mechanics proves your existence isn't bound to one outcome. And most importantly, you'll understand how this astonishing reality directly involves you, your consciousness, and your life path. You're not just a body moving through space. You are a quantum entity, a multidimensional phenomenon entangled across space, time, and infinite possibilities. And if that sounds impossible, prepare to be challenged. Because the equations don't care about disbelief. The math is here, the science is unfolding, and the only thing left is your awareness. Let's begin. There's a flaw in how we've been taught to see the universe. We're raised to think of space as a vast but singular arena, one cosmos, one reality, one narrative. But physics is revealing a deeper, more chaotic truth. The universe, as you know it, is just one instance in a vastly more complex architecture. The multiverse is not an idea reserved for science fiction anymore. It's becoming one of the most plausible explanations for the nature of existence itself. Michio Kaku, in his groundbreaking book Parallel Worlds, doesn't just entertain the idea, he treats it as a natural extension of modern physics. And when you hear it from a physicist who helped shape string field theory, it's worth more than just a passing thought. Let's break it down. There are 4 primary levels of multiverses recognized by leading scientists, each layer more surreal and profound than the last. Level 1. Infinite space with repeating patterns. This is the most accessible form of multiverse theory, and ironically, it doesn't require exotic physics at all. It simply takes what we already know about space and stretches it. If the universe is infinite and matter is distributed somewhat uniformly, then eventually the patterns of atoms and molecules must repeat. That means, far beyond what we can observe, there exists another version of Earth. Another version of you, with the same memories, living the same life, and slightly further out, a version where you made one different choice this morning and everything changed. That's not just philosophy. It's statistical inevitability in an infinite space. And this is just the beginning. Level 2. Bubble universes from cosmic inflation. This next concept stems from a deeper understanding of how the universe expanded. After the Big Bang, space didn't just grow, it inflated at an exponential rate. But this inflation may not have stopped everywhere at once. In fact, inflation could still be happening eternally in different pockets of reality. Each pocket forms a bubble universe, with its own physical constants, its own laws, and its own timeline. Our universe is one bubble in a cosmic froth of infinite others. Every bubble is a separate universe, some with stars and galaxies, others with no matter at all. Some with familiar physics, others with forces and particles we've never encountered. This isn't just speculation. It's a natural consequence of the equations that explain how our universe emerged. Level 3. The quantum many-worlds interpretation. Now things get even more strange and personal. This level is directly tied to quantum mechanics, the most accurate scientific framework we've ever developed. In quantum theory, particles don't exist in a fixed state. They exist in a probability cloud, multiple potential outcomes all superimposed until observed. The many-worlds interpretation takes this idea seriously. It suggests that every quantum event that could have happened does happen, but in a separate branch of reality. Every time a choice is made, every time an atom changes state, a new universe splits off where that other outcome plays out. You didn't just choose coffee over tea. You created two versions of yourself, one in each timeline. According to Kaku, the universe you're experiencing right now is simply one branch of an ever-growing tree of timelines. Each one as real as the next. Think about that. You're not just living one life. You are an infinite sequence of selves, existing simultaneously across dimensions you'll never consciously perceive, yet still connected in ways physics is only beginning to understand. Level 4. Mathematical universes with different physical laws. This is where reality bends beyond comprehension. Proposed by cosmologist Max Tegmark, and supported in spirit by thinkers like Kaku, this level suggests that every possible mathematical structure exists as its own universe. Not just different outcomes, but different laws altogether. Universes with no gravity. Universes where time runs in reverse. Universes governed by equations we can't even conceive. The idea is radical but clean. If mathematics is the language of reality, then any consistent mathematical structure is a reality. This means there are universes where logic itself operates differently. Realities so foreign they defy even our imagination. Kaku explains this entire multiverse model using a surprisingly simple analogy, one that brings the complexity into sharp focus. He compares parallel universes to radio frequencies. All the stations are broadcasting simultaneously, but you're only tuned to one channel. You can't hear the others, not because they aren't real, but because your consciousness is locked to a specific frequency. This analogy is more than poetic. It's a metaphor grounded in quantum behavior. Your brain, your senses, your perception, all are wired to interpret one sliver of reality. But the others are there, constant, persistent, just out of reach. This is the new frontier of science, not some mystical fantasy. It's the logical consequence of what we already observe in the cosmos. Multiverse theory doesn't stretch the rules, clarifies them, and as our understanding grows, so does the realization that your existence is not singular. It's infinite, and if infinite versions of you exist across countless realities, then your choices today ripple through a sea of selves, each one a mirror, a shadow, a reflection of possibilities you haven't yet imagined. But if you think this ends at theoretical physics, you're mistaken. Because the next step takes this concept deeper, into the very quantum mechanisms that underlie everything you call real. And it leads us to a haunting possibility, that your own consciousness may be quantum in nature, that your awareness, your decisions, your identity, are threads pulled from across timelines, stitched together by laws more ancient and more precise than we ever dared to believe. And that's where we're going next. Everything you've ever learned about reality begins to collapse when you step into the world of quantum mechanics. It's not a minor adjustment to how things work. It's a complete redefinition of what existing even means. And what makes this even more astonishing is how deeply it connects, not just to particles and waves, but to you, your thoughts, your decisions, your presence in this moment. Quantum physics is the most successful scientific theory ever developed. It powers your electronics, explains atomic behavior, and predicts outcomes with stunning precision. But beneath this polished surface lies something unsettling. Something that defies common sense and opens the door to multiple selves, multiple timelines, and a reality that isn't as solid as it seems. At the center of this mystery lies one of the most famous experiments in science, the double-slit experiment. Imagine a particle, say an electron, being fired toward a barrier with two narrow slits. You'd expect it to pass through one slit or the other, like a marble through a gate. But that's not what happens. Instead, the electron behaves like a wave. It spreads out, interferes with itself, and creates a pattern of interference on a screen behind the slits, just like a ripple on water. Now here's where it becomes mind-altering. If you place a detector at the slits to see which slit the electron passes through, the interference pattern vanishes. The electron behaves like a particle again, choosing one path. Observation collapses the wave behavior. It's not just that you don't know what path the particle took. It's that the particle didn't have a defined path until you observed it. This is the strange world you're built from. At your most fundamental level, you are made of particles that exist in multiple potential states simultaneously until something interacts with them. In the language of quantum physics, this is known as superposition. But the implications are far deeper than most realize. Superposition means that reality doesn't exist in a definite state until interaction occurs. And if particles behave this way, the next question is unavoidable. Does your consciousness behave this way too? Many physicists and philosophers have dared to ask this question. If a particle can exist in multiple states, why not a conscious being composed of billions of these particles? And if observation causes a collapse of potential outcomes into one observable result, what role does consciousness actually play in shaping reality? This is where the concept of quantum decoherence enters the picture. It's the process by which a quantum system loses its ability to maintain superposition, effectively choosing a state. Decoherence explains why we don't see cats both alive and dead or ourselves split across choices. The quantum states branch out, but the observer's path becomes locked into one of them. But quantum decoherence doesn't deny the other branches. They still exist, only without our awareness of them. This is the core of the many worlds interpretation. Every interaction, every measurement, every thought that affects a quantum system creates a branching point, splitting realities, each one containing a different version of you, living out the alternative outcome. You didn't merely choose to speak or stay silent today. You split. One version of you spoke. Another didn't. Both are real, both are occurring, and both are evolving independently through their own quantum landscapes. Now pause and consider the scale. You don't just exist in one timeline. You exist in countless parallel lines of reality, all branching endlessly, all populated by versions of you making different decisions, seeing different outcomes, learning different truths. And all of this isn't just speculative poetry. It's the direct consequence of how quantum systems behave. But the next frontier in this exploration is even more provocative. Is consciousness itself a quantum phenomenon? Michio Kaku and other physicists have proposed an intriguing hypothesis that consciousness might not simply emerge from neurons firing in a biological brain, but from quantum processes occurring at subatomic scales. That your awareness is not just electrical, but quantum informational. That your thoughts are not merely the byproduct of chemical interactions, but of quantum states coalescing into self-awareness. This perspective reshapes everything. If your consciousness arises from quantum behavior, then it too may exist in a kind of superposition, connected subtly across dimensions, bleeding through timelines, affected by decisions made not just here, but elsewhere in your quantum identity. Think about your intuition, that strange knowing, that unexplainable pull toward something that makes no rational sense. Traditional neuroscience struggles to explain these phenomena. But from a quantum viewpoint, they might not be random at all. They might be subtle echoes from other realities, information crossing through the quantum fabric from versions of you who've already made those choices. Kaku often refers to the quantum mind as being similar to a receiver, like a radio tuned to a specific frequency. In this model, your conscious experience is what you perceive on your frequency, but other frequencies, other U's, are still broadcasting simultaneously. And that's not where it ends. The idea of wave function collapse means that every decision you make locks one quantum outcome into this particular experience. But collapse doesn't erase the alternatives. It just moves your awareness onto one thread. The others continue. The other U's keep living. You haven't eliminated other possibilities, you've just tuned into one. Every thought, every decision, every hesitation is not just a moment in time. It's a fork in existence. Your quantum self is stretched across every possibility. You are not the final product of a singular life. You are a mosaic of realities, unfolding in parallel, branching infinitely. Now, consider this. If your consciousness is quantum, then it may not even be bound by linear time the way you experience it now. You may perceive life as a sequence, but what if your quantum self experiences it differently? What if your subconscious mind receives information from the past, the future, and parallel versions all at once, but your conscious mind interprets it in a straight line? This would mean that who you are today is shaped not only by your past, but by your other selves. That your growth, your insights, your inner shifts aren't confined to this timeline. They're multidimensional feedback loops, an exchange between alternate selves navigating similar patterns in different ways. Think of the implications this carries for your sense of identity. You're not just a person reacting to the world, you're a field of probabilities, a spectrum of possible selves interacting in complex, unseen ways. Your journey isn't a line. It's a tree with infinite branches, and you're climbing multiple limbs simultaneously. And physics doesn't shy away from this idea anymore. In fact, it welcomes it. Quantum mechanics isn't just about atoms and equations anymore. It's beginning to intersect with the most fundamental questions about what it means to be conscious, to be alive, to be you. And Michio Kaku has been one of the strongest voices echoing this thought. That understanding the quantum self might not only redefine science, it might redefine humanity. But if you're beginning to see the edges of something far bigger than yourself, you're right. Because we haven't even touched the true architecture underlying this infinite framework. Up next, we're going to examine a theory that takes all of this and expands it exponentially. A theory that requires dimensions beyond what we can perceive, dimensions that might be the very scaffolding of the multiverse itself. And once you understand this structure, the idea of parallel realities won't feel theoretical anymore. It will feel inevitable. If reality feels mysterious now, it's about to get even more expansive. Because everything you've heard so far, quantum particles, multiple timelines, parallel versions of yourself, all of that operates on a plane we barely understand. But what if the true framework of existence isn't even visible to the eye or measurable by conventional instruments? What if the very structure of the universe is hidden in folds of reality that extend beyond our comprehension? This is not an idea born from fantasy. It's an unavoidable outcome of some of the most powerful equations in theoretical physics. And at the heart of this revolution lies one of the most profound scientific breakthroughs of the modern era: string theory. It's easy to think of the universe as made up of tiny particles, electrons, protons, quarks. But that's just the surface. According to string theory, these particles are not fundamental. They are not indivisible building blocks. They are vibrations, tiny oscillating strings of energy that generate what we perceive as particles, simply by how they vibrate. Think of a violin string. The note it produces depends on how it vibrates. Similarly, every particle you've ever heard of, from a photon to a Higgs boson, is just a different note played on the same underlying cosmic instrument. These fundamental strings vibrate at specific frequencies, and those frequencies determine everything: mass, charge, spin, interaction. But this elegant idea leads to a radical consequence. For string theory to work, the mathematics doesn't just prefer extra dimensions, it requires them. Not 3, not 4, but 11. That's right. In order for the theory to be mathematically consistent, reality must consist of 11 dimensions, far beyond the 3 of space and 1 of time that we experience every day. These additional dimensions aren't science fiction embellishments. They are an intrinsic requirement of the theory itself. So what are these extra dimensions? And where are they? They're not floating beside you like invisible corridors. They are curled up, compactified at scales so tiny, so infinitesimal, that they evade direct detection. Think of a garden hose. From a distance, it looks like a simple line. But up close, you notice it has a circular cross-section. In the same way, these extra dimensions are curled so tightly at the Planck scale, the smallest measurable unit in physics, that they remain hidden in plain sight. But just because you can't perceive them doesn't mean they're not shaping your reality. These hidden dimensions influence how strings vibrate. And in turn, those vibrations dictate everything in the universe. Every atom, every force, every law of nature. Now step back and consider the scale of this implication. If different shapes and configurations of curled-up dimensions produce different patterns of vibration, then they could produce different universes entirely, each with its own laws of physics, particles, and constants. This is where the idea of the multiverse isn't just a philosophical extension, it becomes a mathematical necessity. Michio Kaku, one of the co-founders of string field theory, has repeatedly emphasized that these higher dimensions are not speculative decoration. They are the foundation upon which reality itself rests. According to him, our universe is like a soap bubble floating in a vast multidimensional ocean, surrounded by other bubbles, other universes, each one created by different configurations of those higher dimensions. In this framework, our universe is just one bubble in a cosmic foam of countless others. Some of these bubbles may have dimensions curled differently, leading to entirely foreign laws of nature. In one, gravity may be stronger. In another, light may behave differently. In yet another, time may not exist at all in the way we understand it. And in some of those universes, there are versions of you not metaphorically, but physically real, operating under a different cosmic rulebook. And this isn't just poetic language. These implications arise directly from equations rooted in M-theory, an extension of string theory that unifies various branches of it under a broader structure. M-theory proposes that these fundamental strings are not just one-dimensional loops, but could also exist as two-dimensional membranes, or even higher-dimensional entities known as branes. According to this view, our entire universe could be a four-dimensional membrane floating in a higher-dimensional space. And in that vast multidimensional arena, other membranes, other universes, could exist parallel to ours, separated by a fraction of a millimeter in an additional spatial dimension. Think about that. Another universe, perhaps one with its own galaxies, stars, and conscious life, could exist literally next to this one, yet remain completely undetectable due to being offset in an unseen dimension. Michio Kaku has often used a compelling analogy to make this more accessible. He compares these parallel universes to radio stations, all broadcasting at different frequencies. Just because your radio is tuned to one frequency doesn't mean the others aren't there. They're just operating on a spectrum your receiver doesn't access. And string theory suggests that these frequencies, the vibrational modes of strings, are shaped by the structure of higher dimensions. This analogy extends powerfully into the concept of you. Your consciousness, your body, your timeline, all of it is a pattern of vibration resonating within this particular dimensional configuration. But shift the structure even slightly, and a parallel version of you could emerge, a being formed by different frequencies, operating in a different dimension, but originating from the same quantum blueprint. And here's the part that begins to break open the ceiling of conventional thought. These dimensional shifts don't require fantasy portals or science fiction devices. They're baked into the structure of the multiverse. The frequencies exist. The alternate versions exist. The only limitation is awareness. But string theory doesn't just suggest other universes. It implies they're constantly forming and collapsing, just like bubbles in boiling water. This idea connects with cosmic inflation, the explosive expansion that followed the Big Bang. During this process, space-time itself stretched, and in doing so, likely spawned countless separate universes, each one encapsulated in its own dimensional bubble. Each one carrying its own variant of reality. Each one housing another version of you. But here's the deeper layer most people overlook. String theory's extra dimensions aren't just hiding alternate realities. They may be the root cause of the quantum branching you experience in your own reality. Every decision, every possibility, every divergent path may not be random fluctuation. It may be encoded in a higher dimensional structure that generates these branches like a tree generates leaves. You don't just move through time. You resonate through a multidimensional matrix where your path constantly intersects with others, forming a quantum network of infinite probabilities. You are not a static entity in a single dimension. You are a vibrational construct across a cosmic symphony of dimensions. And just like a note can harmonize with others, your vibrational self may be influencing, subtly, silently, alternate versions of yourself in nearby realities. You may not feel it in words or thoughts, but in instincts, in shifts of emotion, in moments of knowing that bypass logic. Because when all is vibration, everything is connection. This is the power of string theory. It's not simply a model of how particles behave. It's a window into the architecture of existence itself. A universe without walls. A self without limits. And the more science explores these extra dimensions, the more it aligns with ancient intuitions humanity has always sensed but could never articulate. The idea that you are more than flesh, more than thought, more than experience. That you are part of something far larger, intricately layered and infinitely expanding. You are not confined by this reality. You are shaped by multiple realities, sustained by dimensions you've never seen, influenced by selves you've never met. And the equations of physics are finally beginning to support what once seemed like metaphysical speculation. But the true key lies ahead. Because if these universes exist, if your quantum selves are scattered across these realities, then the next question becomes unavoidable. Are they connected? Is there something that binds these selves across time, space, and dimension? And what if science has already discovered that link? Get ready, because what's coming next will shift your understanding of identity forever. Now that you've seen how modern physics supports the existence of multiple universes and how string theory suggests that parallel versions of you could exist across dimensions, the next layer reveals something even more electrifying. These versions of you might not be isolated. They might be intertwined, connected through mechanisms that science is only beginning to understand. And the key to unlocking this connection is a concept so bizarre, so counterintuitive, that even Einstein struggled to accept it. It's known as quantum entanglement, and it challenges everything we think we know about individuality, distance, and separation. At its core, quantum entanglement is a phenomenon where two or more particles become linked in such a way that their states are instantly correlated, no matter how far apart they are. If you change something about one particle, the other responds instantly. Not with a delay, not at the speed of light, but instantly, across any distance, across any barrier. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance, because it violated the idea that nothing can travel faster than light. Yet experiment after experiment has confirmed it. This is not a glitch in the system, it's how the system works. But here's where it begins to transcend particle physics and stretch into something far more personal. If particles can be entangled across vast distances, and if your body, your mind, your consciousness are made of quantum particles, then it raises a question science is now starting to ask out loud. Could you be entangled with yourself? Not just your biological self, but your other versions, the ones scattered across the multiverse. The ones shaped by different choices, different timelines, different dimensional environments. Could there be a quantum bridge connecting your awareness to these alternate yous? Let's go deeper. The Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradox, a famous thought experiment, questioned whether quantum mechanics was incomplete. They argued that the strange behavior of entangled particles implied the existence of hidden variables, some unseen force that explained the instantaneous communication between them. But decades later, experiments proved there were no hidden variables. The particles were simply entangled. Reality itself was non-local. The fabric of the universe didn't respect the classical boundary of distance. It responded holistically. Now apply that to consciousness. If every decision branches into new timelines, and every timeline represents a quantum variation of you, then perhaps those branches aren't entirely separate. Perhaps they are still linked at a quantum level. Not metaphorically, literally. A shift in one may create subtle ripples in another. And this isn't a fringe theory anymore. Leading physicists and theorists, including Michio Kaku, have begun to speculate that consciousness may be a quantum process. Not just the result of chemical reactions in the brain, but a quantum event, an interplay of wave functions, probability fields, and non-local entanglements. Some researchers propose that the brain may operate as a quantum receiver, attuned to states not entirely bound by space and time, which leads to a staggering possibility. Your intuition may not be imagination. It may be quantum information. Those moments when you feel something you can't explain, when you sense a direction before logic justifies it, when you experience an internal tug toward an unknown path, those may not be random. They could be fragments of entangled data filtering in from your parallel selves, a form of quantum resonance echoing across dimensions. This would mean you're not a closed system. You're part of a multidimensional network of intelligence, connected in ways that traditional biology can't measure. Just as entangled particles influence each other across distance, your alternate selves could be communicating with you, not in words or thoughts, but in quantum patterns. A shift in one reality may slightly nudge the others, creating interference patterns that affect mood, perception, or even decision-making. Think of it this way: you are a node in a larger quantum lattice, a central point among countless lines of possibility. And those lines don't just represent theoretical paths. They represent active, simultaneous versions of you, bound together through the strange non-local nature of quantum entanglement. Not separate lives, not unreachable fictions, but active participants in your own decision matrix. Let's return to entanglement. When two particles are entangled, they lose their individual identities. They become part of a single system, described by a shared wave function. That wave function doesn't belong to either particle alone. It belongs to the system as a whole. Now extend that to consciousness. If quantum entanglement is the foundational mechanism of the universe, and if your consciousness is a quantum system, then perhaps your awareness also belongs to a shared field, a multidimensional mindscape stretching across realities. Michio Kaku has suggested that the brain might function like a quantum antenna, not just generating thought but receiving signals, possibly from higher dimensional sources or alternate selves. This doesn't require mystical thinking. It's simply an extension of known quantum behavior. The physics doesn't prohibit it. In fact, it may demand it. Let's explore this analogy even further. In radio broadcasting, a signal can be picked up by multiple receivers if they're tuned to the correct frequency. If your brain is a receiver, it may be tuned not only to your current timeline, but occasionally, momentarily, to frequencies from alternate versions of you. Flashes of insight, waves of emotion, unexplained certainty. These may all be signals from your quantum network, an entangled field of consciousness operating across space, time, and dimension. And this idea gains strength when we examine the latest quantum entanglement experiments. Scientists have demonstrated entangled states over distances of hundreds of kilometers. They've shown that these links persist even under extreme conditions. Some research even points to quantum coherence in biological systems, suggesting that life itself may rely on entangled information flow. If this is true, then your existence is not an isolated chain of physical events. It's a coherent quantum process. You are not a singular self. You are a cloud of probabilities, an entangled resonance, a multidimensional expression of identity constantly shifting and interacting across realities. And here's where it becomes transformational. If your quantum self is entangled with others, then decisions aren't isolated either. When you choose a path, you influence the pattern of the entire system. Every action ripples across the network. Every choice resonates in multiple directions. You are not acting alone. You are tuning the entire lattice of your potential. This completely reframes the concept of individuality. You are not a lone consciousness trapped in a single brain. You are a fractal node of intelligence resonating across an interconnected spectrum of selfhood. You are simultaneously here and elsewhere, now and then, this and that. And quantum entanglement is the language through which this deeper identity speaks. Michio Kaku often describes the future of science not as an exploration of new particles, but as the discovery of new levels of awareness, dimensions of understanding that integrate consciousness into the very equations of the universe. If entanglement is real, and if consciousness participates in quantum reality, then identity itself may be a multidimensional field, a harmonic structure, a superposition of selves. This changes everything. You are no longer confined to the body. You are not limited by this timeline. You are not alone in your own decisions. You are part of something grander, a system of selves, a spectrum of consciousness, a quantum field of intelligence. And if that's true, then perhaps what we call intuition, déjà vu, insight, even inspiration, these may be moments where the signal becomes clear, where one version of you whispers across the quantum void to another, where the veil lifts, however briefly, and the entire system of selves hums in unity. This is the real power of the multiverse. Not just a theory of alternate timelines, but a profound redefinition of who you are. You are quantum. You are multidimensional. You are entangled. And the versions of you scattered across reality may be speaking more often than you ever realized. But there's more. Because if this connection is real, if consciousness is part of a quantum network, then we may already be on the edge of something far greater, a new understanding of what it means to be sentient in a multiversal reality. And soon, physics might offer more than theories. It may offer tools. In the next part, we'll look at what science is actually doing to prove this connection, how current experiments are pushing the boundaries of reality, and why your multidimensional identity may soon be measurable. The theoretical groundwork has been laid. The multiverse is no longer confined to speculative philosophy or fringe science fiction. It's rising steadily through the ranks of accepted physics, carving a place for itself not just in imagination, but in experiment. What began as mathematical elegance is now becoming physical inquiry. And what once sounded impossible is beginning to look inevitable. The question that now echoes through scientific halls is not whether these multiple universes exist, but how close we are to verifying them in measurable, observable terms. Modern physics has not only refined its language, it has begun to point telescopes, colliders, and quantum processors toward these elusive possibilities. And every new development, every strange signal, every unexplained anomaly seems to whisper one message. Something larger is happening behind the curtain of ordinary space-time. Start with the sky itself. The cosmic microwave background radiation, the faint afterglow from the birth of our universe, is not just a static snapshot. It's a fingerprint, cosmic echo, and in that fingerprint subtle asymmetries have been discovered. Variations in temperature and polarization patterns that standard cosmology can't fully explain. These aren't random fluctuations. They might be the shadows of collisions between our universe and others. Some physicists argue that what we're seeing in those anomalies is not noise, it's structure. Evidence of interaction with other bubble universes born from the same inflationary process that birthed ours. According to cosmic inflation theory, universes could be popping into existence constantly, expanding outward like soap bubbles in a quantum foam. And if these bubbles bump into each other, even slightly, it leaves marks. Scars on the cosmic background. Marks that we may already be observing. The instruments are getting sharper. Satellites like Planck and WMAP have provided high-resolution maps of these cosmic variations, and new missions are pushing even deeper. The more detail we gather, the harder it becomes to dismiss the anomalies as coincidence. These irregularities may be the first tangible footprints of the multiverse brushing against ours. But the sky isn't the only place where the veil is thinning. At the opposite end of scale, deep within the realm of subatomic particles, quantum computing is emerging, not just as a technological breakthrough, but as a practical application of multiverse theory. The very concept of quantum computing is built on superposition and parallelism. Traditional computers work in binary, on or off, 1 or 0, but quantum bits or qubits exist in multiple states simultaneously. When a quantum algorithm is executed, it doesn't just process one solution at a time. It explores many possibilities at once, as though it were computing across multiple universes and then collapsing the results into a single outcome. This isn't poetic metaphor. It's operational logic. Physicists like David Deutsch have argued that quantum computing works because of the multiverse, because computations are spread across parallel realities, each solving part of the problem, then merging outcomes via interference patterns. In that view, every time a quantum computer runs a process, it's utilizing parallel timelines to perform its task. The deeper implication? We're already interacting with the multiverse not through abstract theory, but through engineering. And this interaction doesn't stop at computation. It extends into particle collisions. The Large Hadron Collider, LHC, at CERN isn't just a marvel of energy and speed. It's a gateway into deeper dimensions. One of the primary objectives of high-energy physics is to discover particles and forces that don't fit neatly into the standard model. And some of those discoveries may point directly to the existence of extra dimensions. The concept is simple yet astonishing. If parallel universes exist, they may be separated by dimensions we cannot perceive directly. But particles, under the right conditions, may leak into those dimensions or receive influence from them. This leakage would manifest as missing energy, unexplained particle behavior, or phenomena that defy known physics. And that's exactly what scientists are now beginning to observe. In certain high-energy collision experiments, there have been fleeting events, patterns of disappearance, unusual decay routes, and hints of unknown particles that suggest interactions with something beyond the visible universe. While these observations are still under investigation, the possibility remains that we're glimpsing gravitational influences or quantum exchanges with parallel realms. Moreover, theories like brain-world cosmology propose that our universe exists on a three-dimensional membrane within a higher-dimensional space. Other membranes could host alternate universes, and the gravitational force, unlike other forces, might traverse these dimensions. This would explain why gravity is so much weaker than other forces. It's being diluted across multiple realities. If that's correct, then gravitational anomalies may be the clearest evidence of other worlds brushing against ours. Instruments like LIGO, originally built to detect gravitational waves, may soon become tools not just for mapping black holes, but for detecting interdimensional tremors, ripples from neighboring realities. Even more fascinating are the recent advancements in neutrino research. Neutrinos, often called ghost particles, barely interact with matter and can pass through entire planets unhindered. But some experiments have observed neutrino oscillations that hint at something unexpected: sterile neutrinos, which don't fit into the standard categories of physics. These hypothetical particles could be indicators of hidden dimensions or exotic physics that support multiverse interaction. And science is not stopping there. New research initiatives are exploring quantum vacuum fluctuations, entangled photon arrays, and even quantum teleportation protocols, not just for their practical applications, but because they keep uncovering data that doesn't align with single-universe models. Each unexpected result becomes a data point pointing toward a deeper architecture of reality. But here's the most disruptive shift of all. The scientific community is no longer laughing at the idea of parallel universes. What was once considered fringe has become a topic of funded research, academic discourse, and peer-reviewed papers. The tone has changed. The boundary between speculative and testable has narrowed, and the push to develop experimental frameworks capable of detecting parallel realities is accelerating. Michio Kaku has often said that technology leads theory, that history shows how the tools we create open the doors to theories we couldn't prove before. Today, we stand on the brink of technological tools capable of reaching into the multiverse, not metaphorically but physically. Quantum sensors, entangled communication systems, and higher energy colliders may soon uncover signals that validate what mathematics has been predicting for decades. And if even one of these tools delivers conclusive evidence, it won't just confirm alternate universes, it will redefine reality itself. Think about the implication. Your quantum self may be scientifically verifiable. Your alternate timelines may not be philosophy, but measurable phenomena. And the distant echo you feel in moments of insight or inner guidance could become a subject of laboratory research. The era of speculation is collapsing into an era of detection. And as more evidence mounts, humanity faces a radical transformation, not just of what the universe is, but of what it means to exist within it. Because if the multiverse becomes fact, then you are not a singular entity traveling a linear path. You are a multidimensional consciousness navigating a probability field. Your choices ripple across realities. Your identity is entangled across dimensions. Your life is not confined. It is expansive, recursive, and layered in ways science is only beginning to understand. And this isn't a fantasy for the distant future. The instruments are here. The math is sound. The anomalies are piling up. The veil is lifting. So the real question now is no longer if we can prove the multiverse. It's when. When science begins to confirm what was once relegated to philosophy, everything shifts. Not just the physical models of the universe, but the understanding of self, identity, and meaning. And now, as quantum physics inches closer to validating the multiverse, the most unsettling and liberating question surfaces. What does this mean for consciousness? It's no longer sufficient to view consciousness as a byproduct of biochemical activity within a single brain in a single timeline. That narrative begins to crumble when modern physics reveals a cosmos woven with infinite versions of you, all unfolding simultaneously. The implications stretch far beyond curiosity. They begin to pierce the core of human perception and redefine the boundaries of what it means to exist. In this expanded model of reality, consciousness is not isolated. It is not trapped in the narrow corridor of time, nor is it confined to one physical form. It may be something far more profound, something quantum in nature, something distributed across dimensions. And if that's true, then every thought, every emotion, every decision is not just a neurological event. It is a quantum phenomenon resonating across parallel iterations of your being. Consider the possibility that you are not aware of oneself, but instead, you are the focal point of a much larger field of identities, each experiencing a slightly different reality, each contributing to the whole. Some physicists and theorists have begun to describe consciousness as a form of quantum entanglement, a receiver rather than a generator. If so, what you perceive as you could be a momentary convergence point where various timelines coalesce. This concept challenges the foundational assumptions of individuality. It suggests that your sense of self may be a localized interface of a far greater consciousness field, a consciousness that spans across the multiverse, feeding you fragments of insight, intuition, and awareness from other realities. You may feel it as instinct. You may call it inner knowing, but perhaps it's something more, a whisper from the other versions of you, resonating through entangled information. Quantum mechanics has already shown that particles can exist in multiple states until observed. But when applied to consciousness, this suggests a parallel, that your awareness, too, may exist in multiple configurations. Each decision you make, every path you choose, doesn't just alter your future, it may create a branching reality, where other versions of you follow the roads you didn't. These aren't theoretical echoes. They may be tangible timelines coexisting, each shaped by a different version of your will. And this brings us to one of the most profound shifts in perspective: choice. In the conventional model, choice is linear. One decision leads to one outcome. But in a multiversal reality, choice becomes multidimensional. Every decision becomes a divergence point, a branching stem that births new realities. You are not merely choosing a path, you are creating new worlds. The weight of decision changes. Responsibility expands. Because your consciousness is no longer a lone traveler, it is a creator of probabilities, a sculptor of timelines. This realization also redefines the boundaries of death and identity. If you exist across multiple realities, then cessation in one timeline does not signify annihilation. It is simply a transition. Other versions of you continue. Some may be older, wiser, more advanced. Others may still be repeating lessons you've outgrown. But in this quantum model, continuity of consciousness doesn't require linearity. It thrives on multiplicity. This also invites a re-examination of personal evolution. Growth, learning, and transformation may not be isolated experiences within one timeline, but collective phenomena occurring across your quantum selves. What you master here may ripple through other iterations. What you struggle with may be mirrored in different forms elsewhere. And the sense of déjà vu, of inexplicable clarity, of sudden leaps in awareness, these could be bleed-throughs from other branches, where progress or insight has already occurred. Even memory itself begins to take on a new dimension. What if memory is not merely a recording of past experiences, but a selective resonance with certain timelines? What if the subconscious mind is actually a quantum interface, attuned to subtle fluctuations across versions of you, accessing emotional and symbolic data from alternate realities? This framework also reframes the concept of destiny. In a singular universe, destiny is linear, predetermined, or random. But in a multiverse, destiny becomes dynamic, formed through entangled choices and probabilities. It is not a fixed road but a web of potentialities, each influenced by the consciousness making choices in each dimension. The future is not waiting to unfold. It is constantly branching, collapsing, reforming, and expanding, shaped by the quantum presence of your awareness. This shifts spiritual inquiry into scientific territory. Practices long considered metaphysical may, in fact, be rudimentary ways of tuning consciousness toward quantum resonance. Meditation, visualization, intention setting, all these may alter the frequencies at which your awareness aligns with certain timelines. In this view, spiritual awakening could be interpreted as synchronization with higher probability realities, timelines where your consciousness reaches deeper coherence across its quantum variations. Michio Kaku and other leading-edge thinkers have hinted that consciousness may not be confined to neural architecture. It could be a fundamental component of the universe, like space, time, and energy. And if that's true, then human evolution is not merely biological, it is quantum. The next leap in human development may not be external technology, but internal mastery of consciousness as a quantum interface. And that leads to a radical proposal, that one day humans may not only detect parallel universes but consciously shift between them. Not through machines, but through focused intention and awareness. Consciousness may prove to be the key to multidimensional navigation, a way to access better versions of your life by aligning your internal state with higher vibrational timelines. This perspective is no longer dismissed as fantasy. Quantum neuroscience is emerging. Researchers are investigating how microtubules in the brain may act as quantum processors. Experiments are exploring how consciousness might affect probability fields. And as this science unfolds, it continues to echo the idea that reality is not objective and fixed. It is subjective and interactive, shaped by the observer. And that observer is you. You are not simply a passive witness of reality. You are a quantum participant. Your perception does not just record the world, it participates in constructing it. Your thoughts are not empty processes, they are quantum imprints. Your emotions are not fleeting moods, they are energy signatures. And your decisions are not isolated, they are entangled across countless dimensions of self. This realization restores power to the individual. It places consciousness at the center of existence, not as an effect but as a force, not as a consequence but as a cause. And the more this truth becomes understood, the more humanity will begin to shape not only its future but its reality itself. The consequences of this understanding are staggering. Every fear you have, every limitation you accept, every doubt you hold, they may belong to a version of you in a lower vibrational timeline. But you are not confined to that version. You are free to shift, free to align, free to upgrade your consciousness and change your reality. Not metaphorically, but quite literally, through quantum entanglement with more empowered versions of yourself. In this light, evolution becomes conscious. Not slow biological adaptation, but quantum transcendence. Not a journey from past to future, but a resonance from potential to embodiment. You are the bridge between probabilities. You are the node where timelines converge. You are not a singular entity. You are a multidimensional being with the capacity to shape reality from the inside out. The only remaining question is whether you'll harness this understanding or continue to operate as if you are separate, linear, and confined. Because physics no longer supports that illusion. You are your quantum self, and it's time to start living that truth. Reality, once perceived as a solid, singular structure, is unraveling into a vast lattice of possibilities. Science is no longer whispering about this, it's speaking in unmistakable terms. The quantum self is not a myth, not an imaginative projection, but a concept gaining legitimacy through the most advanced frontiers of physics. With every experiment, every theory, every anomaly in cosmic observations, a deeper truth rises to the surface. Your existence is far more complex, far more expansive, and far more powerful than you've ever been led to believe. Throughout this journey, you've explored the mounting evidence that confirms the multiverse isn't an abstract idea. It's a legitimate framework supported by mathematical rigor and quantum logic. From infinite spatial domains to cosmic bubble realities, from quantum superposition to mathematical universes that follow entirely different laws, each layer of this discovery reshapes our understanding of where we are and who we are. The universe you've always accepted as the only reality may be just one of countless frequencies operating side by side. Michio Kaku's analogies no longer sit on the fringe of speculation. They're echoing through academic halls, supported by mathematical models and experimental confirmations. When he said parallel universes are like radio stations all broadcasting at once, he wasn't indulging in metaphor. He was describing a scientific phenomenon, a concept that now stands firm within multiverse theory, string theory, and quantum field interpretations. And the implications for you, the observer, are nothing short of revolutionary. You are not an isolated entity observing a single track of time. You are a dynamic field of consciousness intersecting a spectrum of parallel realities. Each decision you make doesn't simply push you down one road, it simultaneously generates new versions of you traversing other roads. This isn't mysticism clothed in science. It's quantum logic reshaping the boundaries of human identity. Quantum mechanics, with its eerie phenomena, superposition, entanglement, wave function collapse, is not merely describing how particles behave. It's outlining a deeper structure of reality, one in which your presence plays a direct role in shaping what is real. Your thoughts, your awareness, your choices, they're not passive responses to an external world. They're mechanisms of interaction with an infinite probability field. The moment this realization sets in, personal empowerment takes on a new dimension. No longer do you need to feel at the mercy of fate, randomness, or circumstance. These are fragments of an outdated framework. Instead, you begin to operate with the awareness that you are entangled with infinite versions of yourself, each one resonating with different timelines, different outcomes, different realities. And here lies the most profound truth. You can influence which version you synchronize with. Your thoughts, your focus, your emotional resonance, these are not insignificant. They are selection mechanisms. Every internal state you nurture affects your external experience, not by metaphor, but through quantum interaction. When you shift your internal frequency, through clarity, focus, intention, you are not merely becoming more positive or centered. You are tuning into a different layer of the multiverse, where events, people, and opportunities match that frequency. This is no longer spiritual rhetoric. It's becoming a theoretical necessity in the face of what quantum science is revealing. And this changes everything. Your relationships, your aspirations, your view of time, your concept of self, even your understanding of death. Because if parallel universes are real, then death loses its finality. Consciousness, being quantum in nature, may continue in timelines where it remains embodied. The you that ends in one thread continues in others. What we once feared as the end may be nothing more than a transition, a change in frequency, not an erasure of existence. Moreover, if every decision births new versions of you, then growth is not limited by time. You can evolve faster, not by dragging your past forward, but by shifting awareness toward the version of you that has already transcended those limitations. That future self is not years away. It exists now in a parallel reality waiting for your consciousness to align with it. This idea challenges the very core of education, healing, creativity, and transformation. Why struggle to learn step by step in a linear timeline when you could access knowledge from other versions of yourself who already possess it? Why view healing as a biological process stretched across years when quantum alignment could place you in a timeline where healing has already occurred? Technology will eventually catch up with these ideas, but consciousness is already capable. The scientific frontier is inching closer to this realization, and thinkers like Michio Kaku have been vocal about the necessity of merging quantum physics with the science of the mind. As quantum computing advances, as we explore quantum cognition, as artificial intelligence intersects with neuroscience, new methods of accessing alternate timelines may emerge. But even now, the human mind, the human consciousness, remains the most powerful quantum instrument ever known. And this leads us to one undeniable truth. You are the architect of your experience. Your quantum self is not a passive bystander floating in an abstract multiverse. It is the source of creative force flowing through every version of you. The decisions you make, the attention you hold, the beliefs you carry, these are the tools you use to sculpt your path through infinite probabilities. This understanding transforms everyday life. Every challenge becomes a crossroad of realities. Every moment becomes a portal. Every thought becomes a lever that can tilt you into another version of your existence. And once you start seeing the world through this lens, nothing appears ordinary again. The fabric of existence begins to pulse with meaning. The moments that once felt random begin to reveal patterns. The intuition that once seemed inexplicable begins to show itself as entangled awareness from parallel selves. And the future, once feared as uncertain, becomes an open canvas with infinite versions already unfolding, waiting only for your conscious alignment. This is not hope. This is not fantasy. This is quantum reality beginning to surface into human perception. It also brings a new form of responsibility. You are not just responsible for what you do. You are responsible for what you become aware of. You are responsible for the version of reality you choose to inhabit. And in that sense, you are responsible not just for one life, but for the reality stream you help sustain through your consciousness. As this knowledge integrates into mainstream understanding, humanity itself may undergo a leap unlike any before. Not a technological leap, not a social evolution, but a consciousness awakening, a shift from linear, isolated perception to quantum, multidimensional participation. And when that shift stabilizes, the limitations that once governed our lives, scarcity, conflict, suffering, may dissolve, not because they are eliminated, but because we stop tuning into those versions of reality altogether. We begin to resonate with timelines where harmony, innovation, and expansion are the norm. We become quantum navigators. We begin to live as quantum selves. So, as we reach the final point of this journey, the question is no longer whether the multiverse exists. That debate is slowly being settled by the mathematics, the experiments, and the brave pioneers at the edge of physics. The question now is, how will you interact with it? Will you continue to view yourself as a passenger of reality, or will you begin to see yourself as the frequency holder of your own timeline? Will you remain tuned to the frequency of limitation, or will you shift your awareness to the version of you that already embodies clarity, mastery, and coherence? Because that version is real. That version exists, and it's only one frequency shift away. Your quantum self is not a metaphor. It is a scientific reality. It is time to live as if that's true. Because it is. If this exploration awakens something within you, there's more to come. Subscribe now for deeper journeys into cutting-edge physics, consciousness theory, and the future of reality itself. Stay aligned, stay aware, and remember, the multiverse isn't somewhere else. You're in it right now, and so is every version of you that you're ready to become.